So tell me your name.
Robyn.
And you were in foster care.
I was in foster care.
Tell me your story.
The short version is between the ages of 12 and 14, my stepfather abused me. My mother found out about it and left me with my stepfather. My stepfather needed to get rid of me, and he tried to have me put into lockdown. Which there was a place called Tullahoma, and there was a juvenile facility there that was pretty much like a prison. And once you went in, you were there till you were 18. And he went to the courts, and the courts told them that he couldn't just do that he had to put me on probation. And so he did. And as you might guess, with that kind of thing happening in my life, I broke probation, by coming in late or whatever.
Okay. What confuses me is, what do you mean you were put on probation?
I was put on probation, meaning that I had a set of rules, and that if I broke the rules, that I was in probation from the juvenile court. So if I came home late, if I did something my dad didn't like, then he could bring me in and say, lock her away.
He was your abuser.
Uh-huh. And he was my stepfather. So, of course, I was, at that time, I think 15.
So he was not even your biological father.
No.
Your stepfather. And your mother took off.
Right. She blamed me and left me with him. So I came in late. He hauled me down to the court. They set a court date. I, at the time, had been working full-time, 40 hours a week after school, going to school every day. And prior to this, of course, had been skipping school and stuff, but had realized I was going to have to take care of myself. I was going to have to do something. So when we went to court, the man that I worked for came and vouched for me, and I petitioned the court for emancipated minor. This time I was 16. And
was he still abusing you?
No, that stopped when I was 15 because I was big enough to hit back.
Right.
So we sort of had a working relationship, but he was still hampered with the fact that he had a new girlfriend and he had me in the house that he was stuck with, and he was trying to get rid of me. So I petitioned the court for emancipated minor, and this was in Franklin. And at the time, and still now, the court system is real good old boy network. There was a mother of one of my friends who came to court with me, I thought, to be supportive. And what she did was she knew the judge, and she went into his chambers and told him that I needed to be her foster child. So the judge put me in foster care to her house. I had to pay her rent. My stepfather had to pay her rent. I mean, I know now as an adult that there's something wrong with that setup, that, I shouldn't be paying rent as a 16-year-old to be in foster care. Their relationship was extremely volatile. One day the daughter took a butcher knife after her mother, and I interceded, and they both threw me out into the snow. And so I left, and it was a really horrible situation. So I did what I was supposed to do. I called my, you get like a probation officer that oversees you, or you did at that time. So I called him. He took me back to the court. They put me into a group home. They put me in a group home with a bunch of kids from Chicago and different places that were really violent. And it became very clear to me quickly that even though I was had these horrible things happen to me, it could be worse. And these kids had it worse, and they didn't like me because I didn't have it as bad. So it became very dangerous for me. And I got wind of the fact that I was being set up with drugs planted in my room, and that meant that I would be sent down to Tullahoma and locked down until I was 18. So I ran away. And I lived on the streets and lived in Southern California and behind a Chinese restaurant in Austin, and lived in Tucson, Arizona. And
so you were homeless at one point.
so I was homeless from the time that I was about 16 and a half until I was 19. I came back to Nashville. Periodically in that there were nice people, and a lot of bad things that happened to kids being homeless didn't happen to me. I sort of had a charmed existence, and it might be because I was pretty personable. So I was able to meet people that, for a week or two, I could stay on their couch and they were decent sorts, But when I was 19, I came back here, and my mother, in the interim, had gotten religion, and so she let me stay with her for like a month, and I started hair school and got a job and moved out. So basically I've been on my own since I was 16.
Yeah. So you were homeless.
Yeah.
Jesus, sorry, my phone.
That's all right.
Tell me about your lowest point.
My lowest point? Well, that comes from the perspective as if you think that after I turned 19 and that there were high points. Just because I was of an age of an adult doesn't mean that what happened then hasn't completely altered the shape of my life and things that happened afterwards. There are things that were really low points in my 20s and 30s that can be directly correlated to what happened to me as a teenager. So to ask me what my low point is, when I got third-degree sunburns on my back because I had to sleep on the beach.
That would be a low point.
That was a pretty low point. But waking up at 30 years old and realizing I was an alcoholic because I'd been thrown into the world way before I was ready, and had learned survival techniques that didn't work, and that was a pretty low point.
Yeah.
All that's pretty correlated back to the fact that I've been raising myself. I would say, truth of the matter, between the ages of 12 and 14, my world was completely altered. And
you didn't feel safe.
Well, not only that, but there was nobody was raising me anymore. Even though I might have still been under someone's roof until I was 16, nobody was raising me. Nobody was having a conversation with me. Nobody was teaching me anything. Nobody was telling me how to balance a checkbook. Nobody was telling me, car insurance is a good idea, or health insurance is a good idea, or maybe you need to go get your teeth cleaned, Yeah. So even though I was still in the house for those years, I pretty much have been, raising myself since probably 14. And
was there anybody that cared about you? Was there anybody that made a difference to you?
Well, that's
one person.
That's really interesting, but there isn't. I understand that a lot of people have that one person that makes a difference. Of course, when I was in California and different places, I would run into people who were kind for a week or two and genuine in their kindness, which helped me survive for a week or two more, And as an adult, I've periodically, one or two people have been nice and whatever. But there's never been, I don't have one person that has stepped up and made a difference or made a change. And really it's just tenacity of my own character that I've been determined not to be drawn under by whatever happened to me in the past.
Do you think that one person can make a difference?
Yes. It's probably thinking about the people that you've interviewed so far. I'm 47 years old. So my perspective looking back on what's happened, what led me different places, coping techniques that did not work, survival techniques are not living techniques.
That's an interesting perspective. What's the difference?
A survival technique will make sure that nobody is going to hurt me tonight, but I'm certainly not living. It's not helping me build my life, or, if you think of it like the building of a house and you have to have a good foundation and all that, regardless, at any point in anyone's life, you can start building a foundation. But survival techniques are on the fly, and survival techniques are fight or flight instinct. And those are the things that one learns when they're 14 years old or 12 years old or 10 years old, and your world is dangerous. You're just trying to survive it. And those techniques that you learn to deal with the outside world are not techniques that you use to build a solid foundation for a life. And that's what is most telling to me from this point looking back, is nobody ever taught me how to do that, and so I've had to try to teach myself. And as a result, I've become sort of a armchair anthropologist. And I couldn't have actually said this in my 20s, but ever since I can remember, I have watched human beings and how they interact and tried to emulate whatever it is I saw that they did, because I didn't learn anything first nature. I wasn't in a home to learn, how you talk to someone. So, your sister Echo was talking about the guy that the Orange Duffel Bag is about, that he didn't know until he was in college that people brush their teeth twice a day, because he'd never been around anybody that did it and nobody had ever told him, and that's what it's like. I mean, the smallest minute thing that you can think of that you learn growing up in a house, things that you learn, nobody tells you them, but you learn them from watching and observing, and they rub off on you, and you learn how to get through your day. So if you don't have that, you don't learn those things. And like for instance, when I was talking to Echo about some of the kids aging out of foster care and going into trying to go to college and all that, I'm 47 years old and I got my GED last year. And still, at this age, I didn't know about FISA. I didn't know about how scholarships worked. I didn't know that I needed to take an ACT if I wanted to go to college. I didn't, and it's really set me back, because I thought by now I would be starting college.
Yeah. So if you could speak directly to a foster kid aging out right now through this video, what would you say to them?
You don't know what you don't know. Foster kids don't even know the questions to ask to get the information that they need. So, information is important. Information is key. Keep asking questions. Look things up on the internet. If you have an idea of, gee, wouldn't it be cool if I could be an air traffic controller? And start studying and asking what all it takes to get there, and don't stop. Because the information is the stumbling block that, it shouldn't be now, because information is readily available. Keep asking questions. There's never a dumb question. Probably one of the things that helped me is that I never thought there was a dumb question, and I was never afraid to just ask somebody something.